I was never really part of my family. My brother was the golden child, the pride of the house. My sister was adored, pampered, treated like a princess. And me! I was the mistake, the failure, the one who never lived up to anyone's expectations. Every single day felt like a battle I couldn't win. If my brother scored well on an exam, the whole house celebrated. If I did well, they dismissed it as luck. When my sister demanded expensive clothes, they found a way to buy them. But if I needed a new pair of shoes for school, they told me to stop being a burden. And it wasn't just the lack of love, it was the cruelty. My father would sneer when I mentioned my dreams. "You'll never make it in this world," he'd say. My mother's silence was even worse. She never defended me. She just watched, cold and distant, as if I was some stranger who had wandered into her house. I learned to stop talking at dinner. Every word out of my mouth was met with ridicule. My brother once told me, "Face it, you'll never be anything. You're just nothing." And everyone at the table laughed. I was 17 when the truth hit me. They didn't just dislike me. They hated me. My 18th birthday should have been a milestone, a step into adulthood, a celebration. Instead, it became the day my life collapsed. That evening, my father called me into the living room. My mother, brother, and sister were already there, watching with smug faces. He didn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "You're old enough now. We've done our part. From tomorrow you're on your own." At first, I thought it was a joke. But then my sister laughed, actually laughed, and my brother smirked. "You didn't think we'd keep feeding you forever, did you?" he asked. They gave me one night. Just one. I packed my few belongings into a worn-out suitcase, clothes that barely fit, a couple of books, and the cheap laptop I had saved up for by working odd jobs. As I stood by the door, my father muttered the final words I'd ever hear in that house. "You're nothing but dead weight. Don't come back." And then, they closed the door. Just like that, I was homeless. The first nights were the hardest. I slept on a friend's couch when I could. Other nights, it was park benches, library chairs, or bus stops. I worked every small job I could find, cleaning, deliveries, anything that paid. But no matter how dark it got, I carried their words with me. "You're nothing. You'll never be anyone." They repeated in my head like a curse. And I swore to myself one day I would make them choke on those words. The years that followed broke me, but also built me. I took every rejection, every insult, every failure, and used it as fuel. When I couldn't afford college, I taught myself online. When I got fired from one job, I found another. I worked days and studied nights. I pushed through exhaustion, hunger, loneliness. And slowly, painfully, I began to rise. By 21, I had landed my first serious job in tech. By 23, I was running small projects on the side. And by 25, well, let's just say I was no longer the boy they kicked out with a suitcase. I was becoming the man they'd never see coming. To be continued. Success never comes overnight. People see the end result, the cars, the house, the respect, but they never see the sleepless nights, the empty stomach, the constant voice in your head saying quit. I lived with that voice for years. But I also lived with another one, the echo of my father telling me I was nothing. That voice burned like fire. Every time I wanted to give up, I remember their faces the night they threw me out. And suddenly, quitting wasn't an option. I started small, freelance coding jobs online. Clients barely paid, but I learned fast. I became obsessed with solving problems, staying up until sunrise teaching myself new skills. Soon, I wasn't just coding. I was designing, managing, leading. At 21, I joined a startup. They saw my hunger and gave me chances nobody else would. I worked harder than everyone in the room. Not because I was smarter, but because I had no safety net. I knew if I failed, there was no one to catch me. By 23, I had saved enough to launch my own project. It started in a rented basement, with 3 laptops, 2 friends who believed in me, and a dream that felt bigger than all of us. We built an app. At first, no one cared. Then suddenly, everyone did. Investors started calling. Clients lined up. The app went viral, and overnight, my name was everywhere. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. But success doesn't silence the past. No matter how high I climbed, I carried the scars. I could be in a room full of people cheering my name, and still hear my brother whispering, "You're nothing." One night, after closing a deal that made me a millionaire on paper, I sat alone in my penthouse apartment. The city lights stretched endlessly outside the window. My phone buzzed with congratulations, offers, invitations. And yet, my chest felt hollow. Because deep down, I knew what I was waiting for. Not money, not fame, not even respect from strangers. I was waiting for the day the family who threw me out, would see me again. That day came sooner than I expected. It was a warm afternoon when I walked into a high-end restaurant for a business meeting. As the waiter led me to my table, I froze. There, sitting across the room, was them. My father, older but still carrying that same stern arrogance. My mother, dressed elegantly, though her eyes looked tired. My brother, in an expensive suit, clearly enjoying the privileges of still being the golden child. And my sister, scrolling on her phone like the world revolved around her. They hadn't seen me yet. I stood there, my heart pounding, memories crashing back all at once. The laughter, the humiliation, the night they shoved me out the door. I thought I'd be angry. I thought I'd storm over, demand they look at me, demand answers. But instead I smiled. Because in that moment, I realized something. They didn't even know the man I had become. After my meeting, as I was leaving, I felt a pair of eyes on me. It was my brother. He frowned, trying to place my face. Then his eyes widened. He whispered something to my father, who turned sharply. For the first time in years, his eyes met mine. The color drained from his face. He knew. He knew exactly who I was. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I walked past their table slowly, deliberately, and I saw it. The flicker of recognition, then shock, then something I never thought I'd see in his eyes, fear. And in that instant I knew. This was only the beginning. Revenge is never loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. True revenge waits, silent, patient, until the perfect moment comes. That night in the restaurant, I didn't confront them. I didn't need to. Just one look in my father's eyes told me he finally knew the truth. The sun he threw away had risen higher than he could ever imagine. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Weeks later, an unexpected email arrived in my inbox. The subject line read, "Business proposal urgent." I opened it. It was from my father. He didn't recognize the name of my company when he sent the request. To him, it was just another powerful firm with influence, resources, and money, the exact things he desperately needed. I read every word of his message, my pulse steady, my lips curling into a quiet smile. His company was collapsing. Debts piled up, investors pulled out, and their survival depended on a partnership with me. Fate had written the script better than I ever could. I agreed to a meeting. When the day came, I sat at the head of the conference table, dressed in a black suit, calm and collected. My team filled the room, laptops open, papers neatly stacked. The door opened, and there he was, my father. His confidence cracked the moment he saw me. My mother followed, eyes downcast, while my brother and sister stood stiff, clearly confused about why I was here. Silence filled the room. Finally, my father spoke. "You run this company?" I leaned back in my chair, clasping my hands together. "I built it," I replied coldly. No one dared breathe. The meeting dragged on, but every second, I was in control. I let him pitch, let him beg, let him paint false promises about loyalty and partnership. He thought business was just numbers. He forgot business was also personal. When he finally finished, I stood up slowly. I looked each of them in the eye, the same family that once looked at me like garbage, and said, "I remember the night you threw me out. I remember your laughter, your words, your contempt. And now you sit here, desperate, asking me for help." My father's jaw tightened. My mother whispered, "Please don't." But I cut her off. This is not a negotiation. This is justice. I let them sweat for days. The next week, I made my move. I bought their company, not to save it, but to dismantle it. I acquired their assets, one by one, until everything they once controlled was under my name. Employees that once feared my father now reported to me. Contracts, licenses, property, all stripped away from him piece by piece. And when the dust settled, I didn't leave him penniless. No, that would have been mercy. I left him with just enough to survive, because true punishment is not death. It's living with the weight of your own humiliation. The last time I saw him was in the very same office he once ruled like a king. The room was empty now. No portraits, no power, just him, hunched over a desk. I walked in quietly. He didn't look up. "You took everything," he whispered. His voice was trembling. "No," I said calmly. "You gave it away the day you decided I was worth nothing. I just collected what was already mine." I turned to leave, but before I stepped out, I added one final sentence. "Now you know what it feels like to be powerless." And that was it. I never looked back. The world saw me as a success story, a self-made man. But the truth? I wasn't driven by money. I wasn't driven by fame. I was driven by a promise I made to myself on the cold night they abandoned me. That one day they would regret it. And they did. Completely.